Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus departed to the mountain to pray, and he spent the night in prayer to God. When day came, he called his disciples to himself, and from them he chose 12, whom he also named apostles: Simon, whom he named Peter, and his brother Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, Simon, who is called a Zealot, and Judas the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. And he came down with them and stood on a stretch of level ground. A great crowd of his disciples and a large number of the people from all Judea and Jerusalem, in the coastal region of Tyre and Sidon, came to hear him and be healed of their diseases. And even those who were tormented by unclean spirits were cured. Everyone in the crowd sought to touch him, because power came forth from him and healed them all. The Gospel of the Lord. This gospel, this account of the calling of the apostles, is one that mirrors what we hear also in Mark, that Jesus went to a mountain to pray, and he called his disciples to himself. Mark says he called to himself men of his choosing. In this version in Luke, he called his disciples, and of them he chose 12. I love this language, and it's something that has been striking to me for some time. And not only to me, but to St. Therese of Lisieux as well, because in her autobiography, Story of a Soul, she begins to explain her life within the context of this account of the calling of the disciples. That on that mountain the Lord called to himself those whom he wanted. And she says that this scripture passage, this account from the gospel, explains her entire life, her vocation, all of the graces that the Lord desired to shower upon her. That this was the source, that the Lord had her in mind on that mountain. And her entire life was the unfolding of that call as she sought to follow him, to be with him there. This is the same for all of us. The Lord had us in mind on that mountain. The Lord has had us in mind from the very beginning of time, with a particular desire for each of us. This great preference that God has for us is something we can't even fathom. This desire to be with us, to draw us to himself, because he knows that only in his embrace do we find true happiness and joy. This is why we can understand that St. Paul is so frustrated in the first reading, because this early Christian community is following so many other paths, is turning away from Christ. And St. Paul, who knew himself to be loved by Christ in such a particular way, whose entire life was changed for that love, felt this sense of urgency to draw others into that relationship, and felt a great sense of anguish when others turned away from that relationship and turned to follow other paths. So for us, this is the drama of our life, the great drama of our life, to follow that call, the call of the Lord who has chosen each and every one of us, who's not only chosen us, but desires to be with us now, who calls us to himself, or to follow those distractions, to forget that calling, to forget his love. The temptation is real, and because of our human nature, we know that it's easy to fall. It's easy to stray. But we thank God that he's given us a great help in the church, this sign of his presence, the sacraments which we receive that call us back to him, the Eucharist that strengthens us for this journey, the the sacrament of reconciliation, where we can receive forgiveness and mercy and grace when we do fall, when we do stray. And so we shouldn't despair when at times we forget the sound of his voice, because he continues to call. And as he says, "My sheep know my voice." So as the Lord calls us today, as we reflect on this great passage from the gospel and this great mystery of the Lord's love for us, a love that's so particular, that's so specific to each of us, wherever we are in life right now, as we reflect on that call, we ask him for the grace to respond, the grace to make this great journey, to live this great adventure of being a Christian, which is this journey towards him. But not only a journey towards him, but a journey sustained by him, so that we wouldn't stray, and so that we could be with him and experience his love for all eternity.